Good evening, everybody. Let's get started. Parshat Tisa. I sent in another sheet. I didn't think I had enough material for tonight, so I have David is going to put it on the screen. I think when we get to it, let's go to 1 through 5. It's really a 1 to 4 is a preparation for beautiful thought from Rav Hutner. And we have, of course, the story of the Peta Egel, the golden calf in this week's Parsha. So number one, you have a brief review of what went on. Vayar ha'am ki boshesh Moshe l'redet minahar, and the people saw that Moshe delayed in coming down the mountain. Vayikal ha'am el Aaron, and they approached Aaron HaKohen, vayomru elav, kum aseh lanu Elokim, make us Elohim, make us a God. Asher yelchu lefanenu, who will lead us. Izeh Moshe ha'ish asher alinu me'eretz Mitzrayim lo yadanu ma'ayolo. We don't know what happened to Moshe Rabbeinu. He was late in coming back. Play on the word Boshesh, he was like 6 hours late. They had made a miscalculation. In any case, he wasn't coming back, they felt. Vayomer aleim Aaron, and Aaron said to them, Parku nizmei hazahav, take off all your golden jewelry. Asher ba'oznei neshechem, which the women are wearing, the earrings, benechem uvnotechem, your sons, your daughters, ve'viu elai, bring everything to me. Vayisparku kol ha'am es nizmei hazav, they did it, they were told, they gathered together the gold. Vayaviu el Aaron, and they brought it all to Aaron. Vayikach miyadam, he took it from them. Vayitzar oto cher v'yaseu egel masecha. He made an egel masecha, a calf, a calf from mineral. V'yomru eile Elohecha Yisrael asher aluchem eretz Mitzrayim. This is going to be the God, lowercase g, that's going to take you out of Egypt. Vayar Aaron, Vayira Aaron. Aaron was afraid. Vayivan Mizbeach Lefanav. He built a Mizbeach. He wanted to offer a korban to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, hoping that God will understand what he did. Vayikra Aaron, and Aaron called out to the people, Vayomer, and he said, Chag Lashem Machar. Tomorrow. The question is, why did he say Machar? There was a whole rush here, bringing the gold, bringing it together. Miraculously, he made this egel, and all of a sudden he says, tomorrow. Why machar? We'll come back to this. Vayashlimu mimachras, vayalu olos, vayikshu shalamim. So they brought korbanot, they brought sacrifices, korbanot on the mizbeach. Vayoshev ha'am le'achol v'shosu v'yakumuli tzachek, and the people celebrated. Number of interpretations of what it means. We'll take a simple, that they were celebrating. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lech red. Now God says to Moshe, go down. Remember, Moshe's up for 40 days receiving the Torah. And he tells him to go down. Ishiches amcha asher elisim me'eretz Mitzrayim, because the people who you took out of Mitzrayim have fallen. Okay, so that's the first, that's a little bit of an overview of the Egel. And of course, Moshe comes down and he breaks the luchos, right? Skip forwards. Number 2, the Parshat Shmini, which is the dedication of the Mishkan. Vayi b'yom hashmini, on the 8th day of the dedication, Kara Moshe le'Aaron u'levanav u'leziknei Yisrael. Moshe calls Aaron and his children, the Kohanim, and the elders, the Zakenim, Vayomer el Aaron, he says to Aaron, Kach lecha egel ben bakar, another egel again, an egel, right? Remember the egel azav. He tells him, take an egel, take a calf. Lechat is for a sin offering. Va'ayel la'ola, take a lamb for an offering. V'hakrev lifnei Hashem, and offer it to Hashem. V'al b'nei Yisrael daber le'mor kechu se'ir izim. Lechatas, take a sin offering, an egel v'keves. They skip down to Pasuk Zion, the second last Pasuk. So Aaron We'll go to the Pasuk Vav. Vayomer Moshe, Ze hadavar asher tziva Hashem ta'asu. Vayar Elokim v'kvov Mishkan. Aaron offered his korbanot. Vayomer Moshe el Aaron, Karev el mizbeach, come close to the altar. V'asei et chatatcha, and offer your sin offering. Bet olatcha, and your burnt offering. V'chiper ba'adcha uva'ad ha'am, and you will find atonement. You'll receive atonement for yourself and for all of Klal Yisrael. V'asei et korban ha'am, do this korban. V'chiper ba'adam kasher tziva, and you will be forgiven. V'yakrev Aaron al mizbeach, Aaron offered on the mizbeach. V'yishchat et ha'egel, and he shechted the egel, the calf, achatas, the egel of sin offering, asher lo. Rashi, number 3. What's going on here? How do we connect these two situations? There's something going on here. First of all, our question about machar, why Aaron told them machar, we'll come to that later, but there's an obvious correlation here between the egel hazav that they made, the golden calf, and that Aaron received atonement for the Jewish people through offering an egel, a calf. Kach lecha egel, Rashi says, Kach lecha egel, lahodia, this teaches us, shemechaper lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, al yedei egel za, al maisa egel sha'asa. That through this egel that he was offering, this was a quid pro quo, because of the egel, the calf that he offered, this was a forgiveness for the egel hazav. Next Rashi in 4. Come to the mizbeach. Shahaya Aaron Bosh. Aaron was embarrassed. Vayarei lagesh, and he was afraid to come forward. Amar lo Moshe, Ata lama tabosh, why are you embarrassed? Lekach nivcharta, this is for what you were chosen for, right? Et chatatcha egel ben bakar, take this egel ben bakar. This is what you were chosen for. What does Moshe mean? This is what you were chosen for, to bring this egel. Why was Aaron chosen to bring this egel, which seems to be an atonement for the travesty of the golden calf, of the worshiping of the golden calf? What does tomorrow have to do with it? Okay, so now let's see Rav Hutner. This was really by way of an introduction. Now this number 5 is a lengthy essay of Rav Hutner where he discusses the dual roles of Moshe and Aaron. Moshe represented din. Moshe represented law and order. Aaron represented ava. Both elements were necessary in raising the Jewish people. Both elements. You have to be strict, you have to give them the din, and you also have to tell them a sense of ava. You know, today I had a visit from a very a Rosh Hashiva who happened to come by, and we were talking about chinuch today and the problem in chinuch. He says in chinuch, in education today, most Rosh Hashivas, most teachers, they're concerned about giving over the Gemara, giving over the lesson. The din, you have to learn. But, you know, it's like somebody once said about doctors, the tragedy sometimes of doctors is they treat the medicine, they treat the illness, they don't treat the patient. Sometimes you have to see that a boy, a student, a girl, a student, something's bothering them. What's wrong? Are you okay today? You have to deal with both. You need a Moshe and you need an Aaron. Every mechanech, every Rebbe has to be a little bit of both, Moshe and Aaron. But in terms of the division of labor in Klal Yisrael, this wasn't what it was. So here in this paragraph, he's really going to flesh out the uniqueness of Aaron's Ava and how it developed, and he brings out really a beautiful idea in Tshuva. He says, Ravakat Hashmoa B'Beit Midrashenu. Many times I have discussed this in the yeshiva. Rav Hutner says, Shekol efsharuta shel tshuva, the possibility of tshuva, the possibility of a person receiving forgiveness. Benuya al hayesod is built on a foundation, shenisharu nikudot ba'adam, that there's something left in that person, Shahayu Nikiot, that is still clean. That the person who's coming to the Rebbeinu Shalom, he's sinned and he wants forgiveness. His forgiveness is based in many ways on the fact that he's not 100% guilty. V'lo hishtatfu b'chet. There's a saving grace in the person, right? Which makes tshuva possible. Shahare b'chota kazeh, for a sinner like this, asher hachet padar l'kol amakav, but a person who's completely covered in sin, there's no hope for him, there's nothing. Alav nemar kol ba'aya lo yeshuvun, he'll never come back. Ukimayim Ramzali quotes the Gemara, kiven da'avikpa tuva keminut damya. If he's full of sin, it's like he's worshiping idols. V'hinei b'chet ha'egel, but the saving grace of a person's ability to do tshuva is that there is a saving grace. That there's some small measure of cleanliness in this person, left in this person. Hesitation. V'hinei b'chet ha'egel, with the sin of the golden calf. Nishara nekuda achat. Why were we ultimately forgiven from this terrible travesty, the sin of the golden calf? Because there was a small nakuda, a small ga'a, b'toch oto masa, something, a saving grace. What was that? V'hu masharatza Aaron la'akev, that Aaron wanted to stall, v'litchot et ha'maisa, and to put it off, v'amar lahem chag lashem machar. Tomorrow you will celebrate with the golden calf. And they accepted it. They hesitated. They didn't do it right away. This was Aaron's hope, to see at least they wouldn't rush into it. Fools rush in. Aaron was hoping that they would take the bait and they'd wait a day. That showed that there was still a certain hesitancy on their part to make this terrible mistake. The machar hazeh nimtzeit stira lechet. This tomorrow is a contradiction to the sin of the golden calf, and they're wanting to do it. B'toch ha'ma'ora atzmo shel hachet, the whole episode of the chet, the tomorrow, waiting tomorrow is a steer. It's a contradiction in everything they wanted to do. They were going to wait. They rushed in. They mamish rushed in 6 hours late, right? He put it off. He wanted to put it off, the sin, till tomorrow. This was an act of love on the part of Aaron. He revealed something to the Rebbeinu Shalom, that there is a place in the heart of the Jewish people that is contrary to the sin that they want to do. They're open. There's a possibility of tshuva. V'hainu taima, and this is the reason shekol sod hakapara al hachet ha'egel. The entire foundation of the forgiveness of the sin of the egel, nasa al yedei Aaron. This was done by Aaron. That's number 2. Kibosha Amar Rashi, Reish Parshat Shmini, as Rashi says at the beginning of Shmini. We quoted that Rashi, that come, Aaron, you do this. You offer this you're going to get a kapara here, an atonement. Ve'ilu ma'asav shel Moshe be'inyan chet ha'egel hayu bepulot shel din. Moshe's role was totally different. Moshe smashed the luchot. He came down, he smashed the Torah. He took a totally different approach. OUisrael had to see both. They had to see the severity of what they did, but they also had to see some kind of an opening in a needle that Aaron showed them. Horgu ishet echav. Moshe commanded, you have to kill all the people who worshipped idols, who worshipped the idol. That had to be done. There was a great slaughter of people, 3,000 people that were killed. That was Moshe's role. V'danotam, he judged them. Not only that, el shaharbe dinei vidui. Many of the laws of confession, Yalfinami Moshe, we learn from Moshe. The ability to say, I'm sorry. Kigon shetzarech lomar ana, please. V'tzarech lefar, you have to say every chet. One has to be very specific. Ubema'amorim shel yamim norayim, on the days of Yom Noroyim of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur Nitba'er Atzleinu Shekol Vidui Hu Inyan Shel Din She'adam Machlid et Atzmo. It's a din, right? He's in a process of judgment. Okay, we're not in that mode now. But just at the end here, he quotes from the source of Rashi. This last paragraph is the source of the Rashi we read. And it brings out a little more. It's in the Torah's Kohanim. Karev el Mizbeach. Aaron, you come. You come to the Mizbeach. Aaron Bosh. Aaron was embarrassed. He hesitated. Lama Bosh. Why are you hesitating? Lekach nivcharta. This is what you were chosen for. Meaning Moshe Rabbeinu. Kol HaTorah sheterachnu shetishra shchina beinenu. All of our efforts, Moshe says to Aaron, to keep the Shekhinah, to keep the divine presence amongst the Jewish people, to keep the Jewish people on the right track. We knew that there was going to somehow be forgiveness for the Chet HaEgel. Aaron Achi, my brother Aaron, Kedai v'chashuv, mimeni. It's you, my brother. Better it should come from you deserve to bring about the atonement for the Chet HaEgel. Shal yedei korbanotav, through your korban giving an egel, v'avodato tishra shchina, the shchina will stay with us, b'chem, amongst the Jewish people, v'tedu sha'makom b'charbo, and that Hashem chose us. In other words, Aaron was privileged to be the one to offer the korban, which was a korban that was offered as an atonement of forgiveness for Klal Yisrael, for their tshuva. Aaron was chosen because at the inauguration of the Mishkan. The Mishkan was inaugurated. We were given the Mishkan. After the Egel, there's not going to be a more Mishkan. But the Mishkan was built. The Mishkan, it was given to us, was returned to us, that we would have the Mishkan because of Aaron's pushing off, his hesitation, his creating a day of delay, and demonstrating that the Jewish people were willing to wait, that there was that nekuda, that holy spark in the Jewish people, not to completely sin. Okay, there's just a few examples that this is not an isolated situation. You know, Rav Tzadok HaKohen points out that the Torah says that the punishment of makot, of stripes, right, is arba'im yakenu, 40 lashes, but we only give 39. Why do we only give 39 lashes? The Torah says 40. So there are many answers to this, but Rav Tzadok says very beautifully. Rav Tzadok says because Torah assumes that every Jew, every avera that he does, there's a little bit of hesitation. There's a little bit of hesitation, right? There's a Maisa, sometimes you have to hesitate, right? The story about the Stipler Gaon, Father Chaim Kanievsky, that when he was in the Russian army, as a young man, he had to do guard duty in Siberia. The guard was given a very heavy coat to wear, you can imagine the Siberian winter, and the coat was never checked for shatnez, and he didn't want to put it on, so he stood guard below zero weather. He said another 5 minutes. He waited for another 5 minutes, another 5 minutes, and he never put it on. Right? I heard a similar story about Rabbi Yoshev. Rabbi Yoshev, when near the end of his life, he had very difficulty walking, and he sat and learned all day. Right? And people came to see him. He paskin shilas. He was running Klal Yisrael, posting a door, and the family was very concerned. He had to walk a little bit, so they took a student and they made up with him. He's got to go in and tell him that he wants to walk with him. He has to discuss something with him. So they set up this whole thing, and he went into Rav Yoshev, and Rav Yoshev was sitting and learning, and he said, how can I help you? He says, listen, Rebbe, he said, I spoke to the doctors, and they said you should walk a little bit. You have to walk a little bit. Let's take a walk. So Rav Yoshev said, okay, soon, a few minutes later, right? A few minutes later, right? Okay. You want to learn a few minutes later. Somebody once said, the Alter from Slobodka once said that he would know that he would study his Talmidim. He'd see the greatness in his students, not by the way they opened the Gemara when they came in to learn, but when they closed the Gemara at the end, when it was time to go to lunch, how they closed the Gemara and went out of the Beis Medrash. That's how he saw the greatness of his students. Okay, Um, Second.
Rabbi
Okay,
Taub, he said, wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow was when Moshe came down.
Correct. Very good. At least one of three times. Right.
No.
Oh, Moshe came down Machar also. Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, let's go to page 2. There was the third page that I gave you, I think David is going to show. It disappeared. Oh, here it is. Okay. Let's do page 2, and then we'll get to page 3. Page 2 is from the Sefer Ibra de Dasha, from Hagrash Alter, from the Ger Rosh Hashiva, Rav Shol Alter. A beautiful idea here. He's Margal Bapume de Kvod Ktusha Divrei Sfas Emes. The Sfas Emes had a golden thing that he used to say. If the Jewish people would have not have sinned with the Chet HaEgel, near Pashtut, the Shechina would be shining within every single Jew. It would uninterrupted, right? Without the Mishkan, right? Without having the Mishkan to give us that sense of Shechina, Kodesh Baruch Hu-ness in us, right? That sense of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in every Jew, we would have had it if we wouldn't have sinned, right? Now listen, but there's a mistake that people make. Listen to what he's going to say. Umuvan bioter, lefishitat Rashi. According to Rashi, shekol hatzivu shel Mishkan, the whole building of the Mishkan, haya acharei Chet HaEgel. We know that it was after the Chet HaEgel. It was after the sin. We needed something. We needed a place for Kodesh Baruch Hu to come and reside, to recreate the spirituality that was so necessary after that terrible moment. Kikol hachet shel avodah zarah was idol worship, according to many. Hu she'afshu hagashima va'achiza chipshu hagashima va'achiza ba'olam hazeh l'Ribbono shel olam. That they chipsu hagshama. They let's say he wants to say what the Jewish people did is they replaced the Ribbono shel olam with physicality, with material physicality, a golden calf, right? It was an embrace of olam hazeh, of this world, whereas the Ribbono shel olam wants to take us to the better worlds, right? The Ribbono shel olam. Aval be'emet, olam hazeh hu ha'elem v'hester v'eder. And olam hazeh is hidden. What the olam hazeh really is not clear what it is. The mashesh at the elokut b'olam hazeh. It's very hard to discover God in this world, right? God is hidden in this world, right? Very hard to see God, right? We're living through a time now where it's very challenging, right, to see what the Ribbono shel olam is doing, what his plan is. Very hard to see what that plan is in this world. This world is it's not good, right? Lo b'binyan gashmi. God's presence you don't really see in a building, in a physical building. Ela in a Mishkan. You won't really see him in a. You build the greatest, beautiful Mishkan. Build a shul, you won't see the Ribbono shel olam. Ela bilvavot Yisrael b'nei Yisrael. You only see God in the hearts of the Jewish people, and that was the tragedy that he says. If not for the golden calf, it would be in their hearts, right? Okay, Ela sha'achrei achet unitzrach binyan gashmi. There was a necessity after the chet to build something powerful, spiritual, in a physical sense. For what purpose? Listen to what he says. Ach sarach la'amik the Beit HaMikdash. We have the Bahachikam, and this is what's really being said. It's not that a Beit HaMikdash, a Mishkan, a tabernacle is being built to restore the holiness of God in that building, because it was lost in the hearts of the Jewish people at the time of the idol, of the golden calf. Don't make a mistake. That's not what's going on here. We didn't build this fancy, beautiful, holy tabernacle, holy Mishkan, to bring back the Kedusha in there that we're lacking in ourselves. After the sin, idols. Don't think that the Shechina left the hearts of the Jewish people. Now only in the Mishkan is going to be God's presence. Zero mabat Jose, that's false. False. V'chinemar sheke'et levavot b'nei Yisrael reikim me'ashrat hashchina. You're going to tell me that the hearts of the Jewish people were empty of the presence of God? Are a late atar panui minez. No such thing. God says that God lives within every single Jew, right? He never left us. We left him. We didn't recognize our spirituality. But the Ribbono Shel Olam, he built that Mishkan so that we would be involved in the Avodas HaMishkan to recognize and to awaken within ourselves the Shekhinah that is still within us, that we have put to sleep. The next column, Va'alshech HaKodesh, the Holy Alshech, on the pasuk Va'asuli Mikdash V'shochanti B'tocham. The command is build a Mishkan, so I will dwell amongst them. B'tocho lo nemar doesn't say build a Mishkan and I will live, right, amongst B'tocho, amongst the Jewish people, singular, right? B'tocho lo nemar ela b'tocham, plural. B'toch kol echad ve'echad. You build that physical Mishkan, it's just going to, and do what you're supposed to do there, it's going to bring back the presence of the Ribbono Shel Olam within each and every one of you. V'hainu shegam acharei hachet, even after the sin, lo nishtana hayesod ha'ikar. This basic fundamental did not change. Ashrat hashchina, the presence, the divine presence of Hashem, hu betoch libot b'nei Israel, is within the heart of every single Jew. Sometimes there are layers and layers and layers that, we all know stories about people. We've seen these stories in the last 3 months of people who are so far removed from Torah and mitzvot, and something happens and they open up in an overwhelmingly spiritual way. There was last Shabbat, there was a Shabbos in Yerushalayim that was arranged by an organization, a very important, special organization of women who learn Bechavrus with thousands of non-religious women. It's an organization, I forget the name of it, it's not important, but they've done a tremendous amount of inspiration in the completely secular Chiloni world. And they did the impossible. They planned a Shabbat for the hostage families. And they brought the hostage most of the hostage families came for Shabbat. There was a lot of resistance, whatever it was, they're coming to convert us. It was an incredible experience. And one person who was an observer said that by one of the greatest scenes was Adlakas Neiros, when they lit Shabbos candles. It was an incredible, the crying, the davening, the waking up of hearts for people, Shabbos, the experience that people had, the commitment people made after that, without being told, we want you to get, we're not telling you to do Shabbos, we just want you to experience what we're about, and we should get to know each other. We're not far apart. So it's always within the Jew. Sometimes it's dormant. Sometimes it's sleeping. So the idea that the Sfas said that the Jewish soul would have been awake in every Jew if not for the Chet HaEgel. He didn't mean that it's not there anymore, that the Mishkan was necessary. And the Mishkan was necessary not to give us a place of Shechina, but to bring the Shechina back from ourselves. The Sfas Emes says it. Shekol matanot she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu natan livnei Yisrael, all the presents that God gives us, heim l'dorei doros, it's forever. It's eternal. God gives us something. He gives us the neshama. He doesn't take it away from us. Well, Pia Gemara, the Gemara says, Gamiri de mehav yahavi, whatever. It's a Gemara. Next, shemitoch kach, b'toch kol, he says in Yiddish heart, b'toch kol lev Yehudi, in the heart of every single Jew, yesh hashrat hashchina, there is the dwelling of God's presence. Gam acharei achet, even after he sins. El shahashinu ichal etzleinu. But we change. Gashmu, we become more physical, more material, and we don't see. We're blind. And with our physical eyes, shemustarot, which are closed, which are milurot, ruchniot, shoalim ayeh Hashem. We ask, where's God? Where's God? Eifo harabonu shel olam. Anachnu, ela shelo margishim. Et haribonu shel olam, b'toch halavavot, we don't feel him in our hearts. Aval ha'emet, the truth is, shashrat hashchina hu kamo lifnei chet. The presence of God is like it was before the sin, before we sinned, before the egel. B'toch kol lev Yehudi. Chol hanogeh gaguya b'chol ratzon shema harabnu ka'elom. It's there. U'kamaymer haRebbe HaKadosh, and he quotes the Kotzker. I think we quoted this a few weeks ago. As the Kotzker Rebbe said, Heichan HaKadosh Baruch Hu nimsa. Somebody asked the Kotzker, where does the Ron Shem live? He said, in Yiddish, he says, Heichan shemafshirim lo likanes. Wherever you let him in. Rebbe Shem lives wherever you open the door and let him in. He lives everywhere. But after the chet, there was a necessity for building a physical tabernacle in order for us to recognize and feel that the holiness is actually within us, right? As the Sfas Emes said. Okay. I'm going to skip the next two things. I want to do another page 3. Is it up on the screen? Do you have the page? Okay, this is a piece from my Hebrew Sefer Kanfei Yonah on this week's Parsha. And there's some interesting things here. Heralo Kodesh Baruch Hu Matbeh Shelesh. We have the beginning of the Parsha. We have the Machzah Shekel, right? We were given the commandment to offer. Everybody had to bring a donation. 3 times we brought 3 for 3 different things. One was for the building of the Mishkan, one for the Karbonis, the other is for the sockets that held everything together. And he says, I want you to tell people, how am I counting them? I'm counting them not by head, I'm counting them. Everybody has to bring a matzah shekel, a 50-cent piece, but a half a shekel. And that's how I'm going to count them. So Rashi, al Adar dorish et hamilah zeh hamofia b'tchilat hapazuch. So now, parallel kamim matbeh shel eish. So Rashi says he showed him a coin on fire, right? Coming out of the way you make a coin, it's coming, right? Umishkala machzir shekel. Its weight was a half a shekel. V'omer lo kazeh. This coin that I'm minting now, I'm showing you. That's what you have to, right? Bo'od shnei makomot nosafim matzinu ma'aseh mishamoshe Rabbeinu nistavev b'mitzvah. As I pointed out, there are 3 times altogether where he's commanded in this shal manat lahavina hayalav lekabel siyua nosaf me'Hakadosh Baruch Hu kiddush hachodesh v'asit menorah legabi kiddush hachodesh dorish chazal. Okay, let's go down 1, 2, 3, about 10 lines down. I'm sorry, I put something in here. This was a rush job, David. I appreciate you putting it up. He's asking a question to Moshe Rabbeinu. The question is, why did God have to show him the money? Show me the money, right? Why did he have to show him the money? It seems that they were aware of this coinage. Madua hutzrach Moshe Rabbeinu, the last line in that first paragraph. Madua hutzrach HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'harot hutzrach l'Moshe Rabbeinu sheyira'eh lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu matbeh shel eish al menat sheyuchol lahavin et hamitzvah. Why did he have to show it to him? Why couldn't he just tell them, right? Tell Moshe Rabbeinu. So here's what we say here. Achad hadrachim la'anot al ha'sheila zu. One way to answer this question is B'kach sheMoshe Rabbeinu haya muvdal min hagashmin. Moshe Rabbeinu was on an uncommon denominator in the rest of the world, the rest of Klal Yisrael, the rest of the world certainly. He was not involved with the physicality of the world. Ad shehamusag matbeya, concept of money, kesef, silver, coinage. Be'etzem lo amar lo davar. It didn't speak to him. Money didn't speak to him. He didn't understand it. HaKesef hu harei ha-simaman ha-merkazi shel redivat ha-chumriyut ba'olam hazeh. Money is, what makes the world go round. In the physical world, it's all about money, right? It's all about checking the stock market the first thing in the morning. It's all about money, right? Moshe Rabbeinu hitasheh ketzad yitaken ki am Yisrael. How is it possible that Klal Yisrael is going to be counted, and the chashivut of the importance of every individual Jew? They should be counted through money. He didn't understand it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu herel Moshe Rabbeinu, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed Moshe Rabbeinu, Matbeh shel Eish, I showed him a coin on fire, Al Manat Lasbir Lo, to Moshe, to explain to Moshe Rabbeinu, Ketzad Yecholah HaChumriut, L'Hishtaleh B'Musagim, Lokach Ruchniim, that Gashmias, physicality, the material world, can dovetail and enhance the spirituality. They come together. The guf and the neshama come together. The physical world, money, if it used properly, has a holy purpose. And that's what I'm going to prove to you, this great mitzvah of Machzah Shekel. I'm going to show you what it demonstrates is the utility of the holiness, the potential holiness in the physical world, not just in what we perceive to be purely Torah and mitzvah, but in the physical world also. So here, I want to bring out here, to drive it home, a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Mitzvah zu melamedet otanu yesod chashuv. This mitzvah is teaching us a tremendous yesod. A Torah, hainu achibur shel chelko aruchani v'agashmi shel olam. Torah is the bridge. It's the synthesis between the physical world and the spiritual world. Right? It's not, physicality is not a contradiction to the Torah. It does not have to be a contradiction to Torah. Val yada efshel panos afilu et yesod achumriut v'lekavenu tal la'afikim shel kedusha. If you have the right attitude, you can bring physicality into the highest level of spirituality. Rayon doma lekach. Here's the idea. Nitan limtzoam in Mishnah of Pirkei Avot. In a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Listen well to the Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon Omer. Hamahalach baderech. If someone is taking a trip, he's on the train. Vishona, and he's sitting with a sefer and he's learning. He's sitting on the train by the window and he's learning. Umafsik mi mishnato. And he interrupts his learning. V'omer, and he says, he looks out the window. And he says, Ma na, Elon said, how beautiful is that? Ma na, near Zeh, he sees a beautiful farmer's tree. How beautiful is that plowed field? Ma'ilal avakasuv, the Torah credits him ki'ilu mitchayev b'nafsho. He's guilty of death. Right? What's going on here? So what did he do? He took a minute to breathe, to look out the window. Why is he guilty of death for this? Right? So listen to the explanation that Meforshim give to this Mishnah. What he did wrong. Right? The simple understanding of this is שהמשנה מתייחסת לאיסר להפסיק באמצע לימוד מחמת ביטול Torah. The superficial way of looking at this Mishnah is he's worthy of death because he stopped learning Torah and he's looking at the trees and the nature and the sunset, right? Amnam, he says, a Rav Shamshon Rafal Hirsch, Mivaer, he explains, Mishnah zu ba'ofen acher, completely different. Al av shebepashtus hamaimer he sha'al ha'holech baderech, true, guy's on a trip, hayamuto lahamshich lilmod mibli li'ityaches lamarotav aboyim shel olam hazeh, he should keep learning, he shouldn't be involved in something else. The dvarav shel Reb Shamshon Rafal Hirsch hakavana hi b'diyuk afucha. It's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. Hamila mafsik. Mafsik means to interrupt. Ein perush, it doesn't mean chadal lilmod, to stop learning. Ela mafrid, to interrupt. To interrupt. Pirushel hamila hamafsik. Let me put it in my own words, right? Let me put this in my own words too in Hebrew, but let me put it in my own words in English. If a person does not look out that window and see the nexus, the connection between the beautiful natural world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, that beautiful tree, and the Gemara that I'm learning here sitting in my train, then he's chayav misa. He's failed. He has to see the relationship between the physical world and the spiritual world. That's the tragedy. That's what the Mishnah is saying, metaphorically. If a person is traveling and he's learning and he sees the nature and he says, he interrupts to see nature. He doesn't see the connection between the beauty of the world around him, the beauty of humanities, the beauty of science, the beauty of the world that he's living in, the physical world, together with the world of Torah. This person is not alive. He's worthy of death, means he's not really living, because that's not life, right? Final paragraph. Torah mitchaberet im ha'olam. Torah is connected to the world. ולא נסוגה ממנו. מי שרואה את התבונות הטבע וההפרעה ללימוד, you see the relationship between science and the world and Torah, אינו משקיף כל העולם הגשמי באופן הרואי. If he doesn't see the connectedness, he doesn't really see what the world is all about, right? Lamar Batzar, Lo Aleinu, never. So this is a beautiful idea, and that's really the lesson that Moshe was given by showing him the money. Moshe viewed money as being the antithesis. It represents all of the physical world. The Rebbeinu Shalom is showing him that this can be used for a holy purpose now.